Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Theater Cliffhangers, or What Comes Next, with your host, Gordy McCall. That would be me, yours truly. Welcome to the show. This week's episode is entitled The Billy Float. Before we start, I wanted to just ask you if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you haven't already, and hit the like button. The more subscribers we get, the more I can stay on the air, as they say, and bring you more and more stories. Just a reminder, the subscribe button's right below the video. It's usually a black box. Just click on that and the like button, and we're away to the races. I'm the founder and first artistic director of the Shakespeare on the Saskatchewan Festival in beautiful downtown Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. In the spring and early summer of 1986, we had to raise money to put on our second production, The Tempest by William Shakespeare. Now, easier said than done, because our revenue came in from some small sponsorships that we were able to raise and our box office. But of course, the box office came later when the production was actually on its feet. But we needed this money to be able to produce it. And the amount we had outstanding that we needed, our budgets were very low, was $15,000. And we were stumped in terms of how to do this. So we had a meeting, a brainstorming meeting of many members of the company, and it was great. Someone who had some boating experience actually told us that the river water is controlled by the Coast Guard. Now, if you've ever been in Saskatoon, have you ever seen any Coast Guard members around? I don't think so. We're in the middle of the prairie. There's no Coast Guard. What does that signify? It signifies that, as young rebels, we had no fear. We said, they can't stop us. The RCMP can't stop us. The city can't stop us. Nobody can stop us from going onto that river. And here was, now, I'm not sure, but they didn't stop us, thank goodness. And I'm not sure if those facts are actually straight, but they were the ones that we based our decision on. And a friend of ours from the group had a small, let's call it a little cabin cruiser boat. Not too long. I'll bet you it was only 15 feet long, but it had a little cabin in it. And our thought, and we pulled this off, let's anchor the boat out in the middle of the river opposite the festival site, which was basically where the festival site is today. But unfortunately, it's also not very far. Gosh, I don't know, is it 50 to 100 yards above the weir? For those of you who don't know what a weir is, it's basically a water wheel that is caused by water going over a sharp decline in the river height, and the water backs up on itself, and it's very dangerous. If you get caught in that, you can easily drown. Well, of course, we thought, how can our plan go wrong? We won't get caught in it, so we're going to put the boat out there. And I think it was Kathy McFadden's husband who came up with this idea. He had some seafaring knowledge and said, we can sea anchor this boat so it will not move. We had to anchor the boat, and then we were going to put out on it an actor, and God bless him, David Bairstow, who played in many of our seasons. He volunteered to dress up as William Shakespeare, go out on the boat, and then we would let the public know that we had to save Billy, we called it. We had to, every time you drove down to the riverbank and put some money in our bucket, we would pull the boat in so many inches or feet until we finally got him to shore, and we calculated that if we did, we could go on that summer with the festival. We would have raised the money. Well, And how did we do this? We did it by making news. We didn't have any money for marketing, so we put this boat out in sight of University Bridge where everybody saw it. I'll bet you 20,000 vehicles go across that bridge each day. So they saw this boat out there and David on the boat waving to everyone, and he had a megaphone to say hello to everyone as William Shakespeare. And the news picked it up, the radio stations, the newspaper, and suddenly we were front page news. And so everything looked good. People were starting to come down to the riverbank. And by the way, the great late mayor, Cliff Wright, made a ceremonial appearance when we took David out to the boat. John Wright and Mayor Cliff Wright and David went out, I believe it was in a canoe, out to the boat to put him on the boat. And he was going to stay there until we raised the money. And that meant overnight. And in fact, he did stay a couple of nights. And he survived by, we had some food out there for him. And I'll tell you, his girlfriend of the time volunteered to take food out to him at night. And he was a happy camper. So that was fine. But a storm was forecast in the weather report later that night. Now, we didn't know that until later that night. And here's the cliffhanger moment. What do you think happened next? So remember, I'll give you a clue. The play we were doing was The Tempest. Be back in a few seconds. See if you figured it out. And we're back. Okay, one more piece of information for you. I also started what's called the Saskatoon Soaps. And thank goodness they're still going until today too. It's an improvised soap opera that we did every Friday night for 10 months of the year at the Broadway Theatre at midnight. Well, we also, in order to raise money for us to survive as actors in the community, I came up with the idea of doing corporate shows. You tell us the subject, we'll show up and we'll improvise the entertainment for you. And it so happens that the night that we put David out on the boat, we also had an engagement in the town of Stoughton, Saskatchewan. Now, that's a fair way away from Saskatoon. And I don't believe we had cell phones at the time. And away we went. So we're down, and we're meaning a group of about 8 of us, had driven down to Stoughton. David's happily ensconced on the boat out in the middle of the river. And we put the show on at Stoughton, and we come out, and there's a message for me. Somebody's trying to reach me from Saskatoon. And I said, well, who is it? I don't know, but they said it's really important. So I phoned back. It might have been to Kathy. I'm not sure who I contacted. Might have been Del Surgic, actually. Or no, he was probably with us. Anyway, I get through on the phone and they said, Gord, there's a problem. The Tempest, basically a cyclone, had hit the city, a terrible storm, and David's stranded out on the boat, and the waves, this is how bad it was, are going backwards, upriver, up the current, instead of down the current, which shows you how strong this was, and torrential rain. Oh my gosh, it was really serious. And I can't remember if we had the authorities down there. I think we did, to try to rescue David. Well, the storm was so bad, nobody could go out and get him. And he actually ended up staying on the boat. And we made a mad dash back to Saskatoon, which took us a few hours. And we got there and rushed down to the riverbank. And David was still out there. And the storm had subsided. And guess what? We had a sign of distress on the boat. We thought it'd be funny. We'll say, listen, Billy, William Shakespeare, is in trouble out there. Let's put a sign of distress, which is a flag upside down. That's mariner terms. So we put a Saskatchewan flag upside down on a mast. Guess what? The storm had snapped the mast off, and it was dragging in the water. And no sign of David. And the news was down there. Everybody, now they were going to go out and get him. And guess what? David appeared on the deck, still dressed as William Shakespeare, with his megaphone up, waving to everyone and saying, I'm all right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Don't forget to come to the Shakespeare on the Saskatchewan Festival and see The Tempest, and other things that he said to us. Oh, gosh, we love David. For him to do that is just amazing. Anyhow, of course, we got front page news out of that, and more money poured into the coffers. And the late, great Joe Lear, who owned the Sheraton Cavalier Hotel at the time, we managed to raise $10,000, not the 15, but 10. And Joe, to his great credit, he donated $5,000 to make up the difference, and we were able to go on that summer. What an amazing event. And so we called this the Billy Float. And later, the next summer, or later in the summer, I think, we made a little boat with a mast on it and put wheels on it, and we pulled it through the neighborhoods. And I remember Chip Chipka played Shakespeare this time, and we would go up to the doors in the neighborhood and say, hi, we're from the Shakespeare on the Saskatchewan Festival, and we would like to ask if you could donate even $2 per line of the play. The script is going to be at the tent, and when you come there, your name will be beside the line that you donated the $2 for, and you'll be able to nudge your neighbor when we say that line and say, they couldn't say that without my $2, you know? And guess what? People donated. They loved the spirit of our troupe and the audacity that we had. And sometimes we said, or $25 a soliloquy. And we had people donate $50, $25, $2. And we ended up, I remember that summer, making over $4,000 in donations. And we pulled this little boat behind us and we called it the Billy Float. So that's all of that originated. And that's our cliffhanger for this week. I think it's a great one. Who would have known that this huge thunderstorm came in when we were going to produce the play, The Tempest? It was meant to be. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button and the like button. And we'll see you next episode for Theater Cliffhangers, or What Comes Next. Until next time, remember, we are our stories. See you soon.